Get ready, everyone, and you just might survive. Ruben and Jason are here with their X-Men deep dive. Going through all the X-books is their mission, so get ready for the learned edition. Things are getting weird in here. Ruben hopes another sword book gets announced this year.
Ruben.
It's the Weird Dose of X, the X-Men comic show. It's the Weird Dose of X, guaranteed. It's the Weird Dose of X, guaranteed not to blow.
How dare
Except
you?
your mind. It's the Weird Dose of X, the X-Men comic show. It's the Weird Dose of X, guaranteed not to blow. Except your mind.
Welcome, all you weirdos, guardians of various minor afterlives, and everyone who would be super glad to do whatever Kamala Khan told you to do. It is time to receive your 151st Weird Dose of X, the mutant member of your Weird Science podcast family. I am your giant size, if you know what I mean, host Jason, broadcasting as always from the Wrong Turn studio, perched high atop stately Weird Science Tower. And joining me is a man who has the mutant power to surpass whomever he is near, but only in the realm of drinking coffee. It's my pal Ruben. Hey Ruben, how the heck are you?
That
We
might
learn new
actually be
things
true.
about you every week, don't we?
That
It's
might be
incredible.
true, yes.
So yeah, you've been away for a week. You
Yeah.
were visiting the mystic land of Iowa, I do believe, some sort of parallel realm.
Yes.
Incredible. So I'm glad you made it back safely from there. I'm sure there were many trials and tribulations along the way.
Well, funny enough, I apparently have created another pickleball monster. I forgot to bring my dad to buy him a birthday gift, and it's one of those, like, as you get older and you're a parent, you're just like, okay, they'll write it off as, you know, you're just busy with parenting stuff and forgive you. But I didn't want to be the jerk that just totally forgot it. Right? You know, I said to him
Right,
happy
sure.
birthday on his actual birthday, but I was like, let me try to get him a good gift. So I bought him a pickleball set, and we taught him. And he used to play a lot of oh gosh, what is that one where you're like in a room? It's the rubber ball.
Racquetball?
Racquetball, there you go. Yeah, so I was like, maybe he'll be into this, and he's a little bit older now, can't do the racquetball so much. And yeah, he was so hooked on pickleball, it was kind of hilarious. Now he's sending me all these, like, you know, he's like, oh, I checked out this book from the library, and like, here's some videos, and it's like every day I'm like, man, it's like way better gift than I expected.
Wow, yeah, you're the other people gave him gifts, siblings and such, are going to be really annoyed at you because you got a better gift than they did.
Yes.
My mom.
The worst part here is he's going to be 70 pretty soon, and I have a feeling the next time I see him, he's going to be just like dominating me, and I'm going to be like, oh God, get my ass kicked by a 70-year-old.
Yeah, my folks, you know, as is required by law, I did move down to Florida when they retired, and they don't play pickleball, but my uncle does, my dad's brother, and he's super competitive at everything, just always has been. And they have to keep reminding him, hey, you know, you're not 72 anymore.
Yeah.
Because he can't go at half speed.
Yeah.
Now, my mom used to play racquetball a long time ago. In fact, she played racquetball at a club owned by Yogi Berra.
Oh, that's
the New
cool.
York
That
Yankees.
baseball player, yeah.
Yeah. In fact, she used to sometimes play with Dale Berra's wife. So Dale Berra's Yogi's son, his wife, also played at the club. So that was, yeah. So I actually have a picture of my mom after she won a tournament with Yogi Berra.
Yeah.
Which is crazy.
That's very cool.
She didn't think to get his autograph. I mean, how could you not do that? But, you know, pretty neat. Anyway, enough baseball. We have some X-Men comics to talk about today. Now, the main books we're going to talk about are Uncanny X-Men number 15 and Giant Size X-Men number 1. Now, listeners, if you've been keeping notes at home, and I'm sure many of you are, you'll recall that at the end of last week's show, I said that, hey, this next week we'll be reviewing Magic number 5. Here's my review.
Curse it and crush it! We hate it forever!
Yeah, that's it. We've given this book a fair shake. I know some people like it. I don't think it's good. It doesn't seem to be getting any better. And Ruben, you and I agreed we're just going to drop it, right? We're good with that?
Yeah, I didn't read it, so it's all good.
If you really need to know what happened, Magic failed to stop the demon Liminal from returning, and so the Dark Child was set free per their little deal. But Magic went to Limbo and made friends with her Dark Half, and the two of them teamed up to kick demon butt. And that kid Cal, Remember the one whose grandmother
Mhm.
died at the beginning?
Mhm.
Against Magic's wishes, at the end, he sacrifices himself to ultimately, I'm not sure if he's dead or whatever, but he's in a bad place. And at the end, Magic is sad, and Cyclops makes her pancakes. That's it. Really, that's what happened. So
what happened to the Mirage angle? Does she?
Oh, they
continue
bickered
to
the
appear in
whole
it?
way through.
Oh God.
And so she was part of the fight, and there's like beep 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 the whole time.
Yeah.
No, you're not supporting me. I have
Yes.
to keep it. It's not good. So anyway, if
That
you want to
final
keep reading
page
that,
still.
folks,
Just thinking about that last page just makes me laugh.
the one with the shadow,
Where she hears the the
Behind the
betrayal.
door there.
Yes, that's such a funny picture.
But folks, don't worry. In lieu of a full Magic review,
Yeah.
Ruben and I are going to do a quick. We're calling this like a side book catch-up. Ruben's been reading the just completed Cable, Love, and Chrome.
Mhm.
I've been reading the still continuing Deadpool Wolverine, and I might have a quick something to say about the Wolverine and Kitty Pryde miniseries as well. So we'll finish off the podcast chatting about those 3 series and what's happened there so far. But first, since Ruben wasn't here last week, we have 2 chapters of the Infinity comic to talk about. So let's get to that right now. This is Astonishing X-Men Infinity comic numbers 23 and 24. I Have Seen Tomorrow, parts 5 and 6. They're both written by Tim Seeley, art by Eduardo Audino, colors by KJ Diaz, and letters by good old Clayton Cowles. So we're down in the lair of the Mutant Liberation Front, or MILFs. They're connected to the murder of at least 2 mutant influencers, Rhonda Forcebeams and Tad Brody. The MILFs say that they've seen a great future, a 39th century where mutants live in paradise and all those stinking flat scans are extinct, and they seem to be working to accelerate the timeline of a war between mutant and human so as to get to that future even faster. This vision of the future comes from a very sus computer called Atom Zero. We weren't told where Atom Zero comes from, but lots of his bits look like they could be found in a Radio Shack catalog circa 1987. In today's first chapter, well, it's a fight scene. One of those deals where it's group versus group, but mostly depicted as several one-on-one fights taking place in parallel. We got Skin versus Reaper, Husk versus Strobe, Mondo versus Forearm, and Banshee versus the MILF leader, Wildside.
I wanted to jump in quickly.
Please.
So Atom Unit Zero is this character named Zero is like a cyborg, and I just didn't know this character well enough to know that. But
Yeah,
apparently,
same here.
Apparently, it told us exactly who it was.
These things come out. The Infinity comic comes out like the morning of when we record, so I just don't have enough time to do as deep a dive.
It's like an exhaustive deep dive.
As I do on like
it's
the
like
regular
exhaustive deep dive.
That's stuck. I hate when it does that.
It's like
So there we go. Yeah, so he actually comes from. Oh, I have my notes written down here somewhere. Blah 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 blah. Here we are. He usually looks just like there's like some future humanoid figures that appear in this chapter, and that's how he's usually drawn. I don't know how he ended up in this pile of junk electronics. He appeared in something right before X-Force. He appeared in right before House of X #1. So probably that'll explain how he got here.
Yeah.
So he first appeared in New Mutants in the very late 1980s. Did you see who created the character of Atom Zero?
Is it Liefeld?
It is Louise Simonson and Rob Liefeld.
Okay.
So, yeah.
F there.
That's what he's been from. He comes from the 39th century. He was created by Clan Ascani, but then he was repaired and reprogrammed by Strife to do, strifey kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So and the thing is, he can teleport in space, but not in time, which is what becomes important here. So we got these fights that take place in parallel. Wildside taunts Banshee for not being as good of a father figure to his side as Wildside is for the MILFs. Father figure is a big theme that we're hitting here in these last couple chapters. Wildside also reminds Banshee and us that he isn't just a dime store version of Wolverine. He can also induce hallucinations. He's used that power to show his fellow MILFs that vision of the future that he got from Atom Zero, and now he uses that power to show that same future to Banshee. And yeah, this is where we can see that we see those Atom Zero figures in that vision. So we don't know how much of this vision is a true reflection of something, how much is just a hallucination kind of cooked up by Atom Zero and Wildside. Kind of hard to tell who knows what and who's being honest or dishonest. Did you get any kind of a feel for what was really going on there?
Yeah, I was a little confused by this whole thing. It wasn't spelled out in a way that worked for me. Is the idea basically that Adam Zero, being from the future, knows what the outcome is and then shared it with Wildside, and then Wildside is passing that along through his
I think so, yeah.
hallucinating
But I think
powers?
it's like a game of telephone where the message kind of changes along the way, because I'm not an expert in what the 39th century Clan Ascani stuff is like.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's like a mutant paradise, is it?
No.
So, yeah, so something's being lost along the way. Again, whether intentionally or by mistake, I don't really know. It's pretty unclear.
I thought it was like an apocalyptic wasteland, because wasn't that where Cable was raised? He was sent to the future and then raised by the Ascani. Yeah.
So that's the first of our two chapters, and everything happening really, really quickly. And another confusing bit is when we get to the second chapter, I thought they wanted to create that mutant-human war in the here and now, like accelerationism is the word, right? Where you make things worse now to make things better in the future. Questionable. Right. But in this last chapter, they kind of want to skip all that and just go through a time tunnel right into that future.
Yes.
Which I don't see how those connect at all.
No, and I was just like, okay, if you want to do that, peace out. Assuming that's a possibility, I would have been like, great, go to the future, have fun.
Right. You're not killing people here anymore. Problem solved.
Yeah.
Oh, and also at the end of that first chapter, Banshee is shown that future, and he says, hey, okay, X-Men, we're actually going to work with these guys. I think they got the right idea. He's just kidding, but we'll find that out soon. So we're all kind of at peace now. Adam Zero creates this time tunnel to the future because we're not doing the mutant-human war yet. Yeah. And they start to go through the tunnel, the MILFs first. And I guess because Adam Zero isn't supposed to be making time tunnels, just space tunnels, is it that it's unstable? Something happens and Reaper's right arm gets cut off, which is a problem because that's the one that he uses for reaping. But what happened here? Can you tell from the art?
No, this is pretty confusing. I mean, I appreciate the art looks cool. Like there's this page where you see like Days of Future Past timeline, and then I guess, is this like Age of Apocalypse timeline slightly after that?
I guess. And then we have this montage where they're seeing little bits of various, I don't know, futures or possible futures.
Yeah, we see like the Hounds. In there. Yeah, the Hound era and, Bishop's timeline. Although, strangely, Bishop looks like a Hound, which doesn't seem right. But, yeah, I don't know.
I think it's just supposed to be showing us various bits of possible futures and the idea that this time tunnel is unstable.
Yeah, I mean, it's bad, and randomly Reaper's arm gets ripped off. I don't know what causes that.
Yeah, I'm curious why Adam Zero can even make a bad time tunnel. Again, maybe it's explained in some of its history I haven't read before, but if it can only go in space, I have something that can move in space. It's called my car. And my car cannot transport in time, even badly, even a little bit. It's like a whole different kind of thing. So I'm wondering how this works. Maybe there's an explanation. Again, I'm going to probably read up on Adam Zero a little bit over the week. So after Reaper's arm gets cut off by something in the tunnel going wrong, Banshee reveals, I was never really on board with this plan, but I needed you guys to see this for yourself that Adam Zero was misrepresenting things. Because he knows who Adam Zero is, and he explains the whole, you can go through space but not time, and Adam Zero being able to teleport through space, that should have been a clue. That was how Tad Brody was killed in that locked room, and that should have been a clue, this is a teleporting robot. I guess maybe some people figured that out early.
Yeah.
He says to the group, if you go through with this journey, there's a good chance you unravel the space-time continuum, which that'd be bad. So maybe we don't just send them off to the future, because it's, it'll work out badly for everybody.
Yeah, I accept that, but it didn't seem like the tunnel was actually taking them to the future, so I don't really get what's going on here.
What Adam Zero can and can't do, exactly what the future is and isn't, super unclear. But now we're almost out of page space, so we need again, Gateway gets used as the Deus Ex Machina. He's done this so many times before, I'm getting kind of tired of it. Gateway shows up, Gateway does something that disrupts the time tunnel, overloads Adam Zero, destroying a pile of TRS-80 junk. Banshee tries to get the MILFs to see reality, but they're all still cultishly devoted to that fake future, possibly because Wildside did his hallucination thing on them.
Yeah, they're just drugged up, and they would rather just continue to be drugged up, which seems ridiculous to me.
I don't really get what the offer is from Banshee, because we get kind of a time skip. and they're all arrested. All the MILFs are arrested, and we don't see who brought them in, what the charges are. But I know, Banshee has contacts with people, but just how we get from A to B.
I think
totally
his proposal
unclear.
was, accept that you killed 2 podcasters, don't live in a virtual reality hallucination, and just go to jail, do your time, and get out. And you have a life after that. And for some reason, they decide to still go to jail, but they're going to be in their fantasy world. Yeah,
first off, I don't know about you, but my position is you kill a podcaster, you never come out of jail. That's we gotta draw a line.
One strike and you're out.
One strike. I mean, even harsh reviews on websites should maybe get a little jail time, but that's just me. So Gateway brings the X-Men back to Ireland, where we started.
Yeah.
Banshee suggests, "Hey, Mondo, you want to join the team?" Mondo says, "Yeah, no thanks. I almost broke my new pacifist beliefs hanging around with all your shenanigans, so I'm going to avoid the near occasion of sin, as we Catholics say. I'm going to stay away so I don't have to, have my beliefs broken like that." And then we get the moral of the story is that Husk is going to turn off her smartphone either for the night or maybe forever. Who can tell? I guess there has been a theme of, social media will break your brain kind of going throughout the story, but it didn't really come together. Didn't really hit it. It feels like Tim Seeley thinks that he really made a point that I don't think quite worked out.
Yeah, I missed the point big time. And why are they transporting them to Canada? I didn't follow that. Canadia's the place where you dump mutant super villains these days.
Well, yeah, so we cut back to the bad guys on this plane being transported. It says they're over Canada. Was the convention in Canada? I don't recall.
Yeah.
So maybe they were in Canada the whole time anyway.
Yeah.
So our MILFs are on this generic prison transport plane. We don't even say, is it the ONE who has them? Is it Department H, Alpha Flight people? It's just super generic people with guns.
I'm going to say Department H because we've seen them in black with like red lights recently in the Wolverine story.
I'd certainly buy that. But
and that boat looks, or that, not boat, but that ship has the same kind of aesthetic.
I'd certainly buy that. The caption says superhuman transport security ship somewhere over Canadian airspace. Yeah, it really should just say Department H on there. I don't see there's any reason why not, but it doesn't. So the MILFs seem to be totally blissed out on drugs or hallucination, except Wildside. The guards say that he seems to be having a, quote, bad trip. We see that he's actually being tortured by Cassandra Nova, who is doing that thing where she reaches her fingers through somebody's skull to mess with their brain.
Yeah.
And so she's been the super, super top level bad guy. Her and, what's this group called again? 3H?
Oh my God, 3K.
3K?
Yes.
Right, because I want to avoid saying 3Ks in a row because that sounds bad, but I think it's 3K. Right, they're really behind all of this, which is kind of neat to have some tie-in with the main books. And exactly what she's up to, we're still trying to figure out. So the next arc of this title, if pattern holds with a gap off next week and starting back up in 2 weeks, will be called the Cuckoo Song. And the one preview image we get from it looks it's like Husk falling off a cliff, maybe towards a stream at the bottom, and either she has 2 heads and multiple arms, or maybe it's just supposed to show motion. It's just a sketch, hard to tell, but that is what's coming up next. So, Ruben, overall, what did you think of I Have Seen Tomorrow, this arc of Astonishing X-Men?
I thought it was too convoluted. You really needed to explain what the Mutant Salvation Front was trying to do and make it plausible that they could maybe accomplish that, and then also explain why it was threatening the timeline. And I felt like none of that was actually delivered. So instead, all we got was like a very obnoxious, like sort of podcast convention and some like weird morals about turning off your phone and getting off of, the social media networks. But it just all fell flat for me. So I'm going to just give it a 5.
I enjoyed the podcasty social media stuff convention a little bit more. That was kind of fun. I enjoyed the idea of the mystery. But yeah, I agree that the reveal of, it's the MLFs and this Atom Zero and the future, at the end it all became very vague and hand-wavy. And what are they actually after and who's really in charge? And how did this connect to, right, the executioner was involved and that side of things. I would have liked that to be just a little more clearly depicted and might have made more sense. I'm going to give the whole thing a 6 out of 10. I don't think it was that bad. It was all right. It just kind of got muddled there at the end. Okay, that is our Infinity comic. Moving on now to our first actual printed on paper type comic, which is Giant Size X-Men #1. Not that one. This is the new one called The Mutant That Walks Like a Man. It's written by Jackson Lanzig and Colin Kelly. Yeah, the Brain Trust. Art by Adam Kubert. Colors by Laura Martin. And it also says with appreciation for the work of Len Wein and Dave Cockrum. So that's nice. They're the guys who made the first one that we're celebrating, came out 50 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
The backup story is called Revelation: Superior. It's written by Al Ewing, who's best known for his recent blockbuster Metamorpho miniseries for DC. Art by Sarah Pichelli. Colors by Federico Blee. And letters for the whole darn thing, backup and front up, by our old buddy Clayton Cowles. So Ruben, yeah, I did not care for this book. It's very much Kamala Khan and her backup dancer friends, and I just did not like the way it was presented. Are you kind of in a similar situation, or are you going to be the one to talk me out of this and say, no, actually it's the best thing since sliced bread?
No, I think the voices were not correct for the characters. That's sort of my biggest problem. I thought the idea behind it was pretty decent. I was into it. I was like, okay, you're doing it. And of course, you throw in Lee J, and I'm going to be kind of into it. But none of the characters sounded like what I would expect them to sound like.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And some of the interactions were just painfully too easy. Like when Kamala shows up and everyone's like, oh yeah, I saw you in the future. It's cool. You're coming with us now. No biggie, right?
She has no problems. There's no struggle for her ever. Everyone loves her. It's a thing that the big two comic companies do this with certain of their characters, and it seems to be generally the female characters. They do it with Lois Lane. They do it with the Invisible Woman. Certain characters where everybody just kisses their ass all the time and just says how wonderful and great they are and how they should be in charge of everything. Yeah. And Kamala Khan is a 16-year-old kid who really hasn't done a whole hell of a lot compared with what everybody else has done.
Yes.
So,
and then
the book would have to be even larger if she had to get herself accepted onto the team. Yeah. But that needed to be more difficult.
And maybe you just hand wave like the Cyclops character saying it's fine. But I was sort of surprised at the rest of the Giant Size team kind of just begrudgingly being okay with her.
Professor X.
They had never met her, right? So it was weird.
Very weird. Okay, so let's go through it a little bit. We start by getting introduced to the villain in the far future, maybe a possible far future. The villain is Legion, David Haller, Professor X's troubled son, except not quite. Later on, Legion says that, quote, David's long gone to his little afterlife, and we're just what's left behind, give or take a dozen centuries. Sailing back. I'm going to finish his quote because he keeps going.
Yep.
Sailing back along a temporal river to take back what's ours. Yeah, okay. I don't really know what that means. So, Ruben, tell me what that means.
Yeah, I get it. I understand what's happening, but I don't agree with the analysis. So, First of all, this is like basically a fragment of Legion's brain that didn't go to the afterlife with Legion. It is kind of pissed off that it was left behind.
Now, did we see Legion go to the afterlife?
No. So this is the complaint. So this thing is saying, oh, he went off to Krakoa and he's in the White Hot Room, but he left me behind. Well, no, that's not exactly what happened.
Unless it happens an additional time in between our present and this future, right?
I guess you could hand wave it that way, but I think this is a direct reaction to what happens at the end of the Krakoa era.
Because I remember him being that BAMF thing in Uncanny Spider-Man, kind of hanging around with Nightcrawler, his hallucination.
Well, I looked it up because I was like, let me refresh my memory on this and what happened. So basically, Mother Righteous was trying to ascend to Dominionhood, and she was pursuing some sort of mystical route to ascension. And she had a secret, I forget what it was called, a thank you or something, whatever gave her power over people, and she had that over Legion.
Right.
And so he decided to take himself out of existence at some point when her control over him was relaxed so that she couldn't actually exercise his power. But he basically just disappeared himself. He took himself out of the universe. And as far as I can tell, because I did a little more research, there was never any sort of like, oh yeah, he got resurrected during the the last hurrah of Krakoa.
Okay.
So this idea that like he went away on Krakoa and now this aspect is like annoyed doesn't really work. Plus, if there was an aspect still in place, you would have thought Mother Righteous would have been able to glom onto that, right?
Yeah, it's really unclear. I'm going to say maybe something happens in the future to set this guy up. That's how my brain can make it make a little bit more sense.
You would have to do it, but it should have been spelled out better.
Maybe it will be, because clearly this is going to be the bad guy throughout this series of one-shots, which is what this giant-size project is. So maybe we're going to get more about him coming up.
Art-wise, I did appreciate this idea of like the Legion hair being pushed down, coming out of like the hood, so you kind of think it's Mother Ascani instead of Legion. It's like walking through the desert. You
see all those different multicolored eyes, like it's multiple people in there, like Legion.
Yeah, but I thought it was pretty cool.
The page turn, that double page spread page turn, we see him opposing this future army. That looks amazing.
Yeah,
that looks that's the best page of the whole book by far. You see the army that he's opposing. They have these big Cyclops powered type weaponry, right? Handheld weapons, these giant vehicle held weapons that all shoot Cyclops beams, and they're opposed to Legion here. I'm just going to call him Legion. And Legion we see from the back, and we see he has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 separate shadows, and all the shadows are these crazy distorted monsters. Looks awesome. That's a story I want to read, right? This scene to me is clearly the coolest scene in the whole book, and I hope we get some more of this going forward.
Yeah, that's Legion's personalities, right? That's what the shadows are.
Whatever these leftover versions are.
Yeah.
Very creepy. So those mutants fire, but the beams have no effect on Legion. Legion murders to death a lot of them, and then he's free to take what he's come for, which is that the dead, shriveled head of Krakoa? Is that what I'm seeing here on page
That's what it looks like.
7?
Yeah.
Sure what it looks like, yeah. And it's kind of framed inside an X-Men symbol, with the X in a circle. It's about 15, 20, maybe 25 feet tall. Legion says, "We hope you're still in there, David. We hope you can feel your future die." So exactly what this kind of Legion is up to, it seems like he wants to destroy all of mutant history somehow, go back in time and make all the books we've read never have happened.
Something like that, yeah.
But why? To what end? Somehow, is that just to make some sort of paradox happen so Legion doesn't happen and he doesn't? I don't know. Very unclear. But
kind of a sad retcon too here, where we've got the site, because we've heard people hand wave like the second Krakoa era, which I don't think we'll ever see in comics. But there's this pretend story that at some point Krakoa comes back and there's another Krakoa era. Well, apparently, according to the Brain Trust, after that, Krakoa clearly gets killed and is now just a decapitated head.
Yeah. Again, this certainly seems to be one of those classic possible futures like we've seen in Age of Apocalypse and whatever. So certainly Kamala, by the end of this series of one-shots, is going to avert this future from happening. At least that's what I expect. Speaking of Kamala, now we jump to the Jersey City side of the Hudson as the sun rises over New York City. And Kamala and Bruno are hanging out and chatting. Well, they're chatting about the events of NYX, about Kamala being a mutant, but having her mutant ability, whatever that might be, held dormant by her inhuman powers. And now Bruno's watch has an alarm. Now, Bruno has been shown as now just as smart a techno-wizard as Reed or Tony or Shuri. He's built himself a time travel detector. What an oddly specific thing to build. And what a coincidence that he happens to have this on his wrist just as Kamala is grabbed and transported through time.
Well, I also wanted to critique this Kamala thing, right? She's all about her secret identity, but she's sitting on a telephone pole using her stretchy arm to throw away garbage, like in plain sight, daylight.
Yeah,
don't you think maybe somebody
not in uniform, no mask.
Maybe somebody would see that?
That's a really good point.
I know she's casual, but it's kind of dumb. Like,
we don't see anyone around, but she is, again, right across the river from the Hudson, and there are literally millions of people who could, be looking out with binoculars or telescope or whatever and say, hey, I know that kid. Oh, well. So we don't know why she's being brought through time, presumably linked to future Legion in some way, or maybe there's a Mother Ascani thing going on, opposing Legion. I hope we find out eventually at the end. We also don't see where Bruno goes. He looks like he's still part of this whole time travel thing. He gets tossed off in the opposite spatial direction.
Yeah,
right?
I didn't even notice that. Yep.
It's not like she's being pulled into this rainbow time travel and he's outside of it. They're both inside of it. So I want to know what happens to Bruno. Maybe he'll get his own miniseries in another 50 years.
Yeah.
We do see where Kamala goes, which is naturally Westchester, New York, the Xavier Mansion, right back in the middle of 1975's Giant Size X-Men. And folks, if you haven't read Giant Size recently, a lot of what's going on here is not going to make a whole lot of sense. The book definitely assumes that you know everything about that book, or at least the general outlines, which, most of us probably do, but don't go into this book cold. If you haven't read the original Giant Size in a couple years, leaf through it, refresh your memory.
And again, I'm down with this general premise. I'm like, this is kind of cool, right? You could throw this character back into, a story that's already happened that we're all super familiar with. But I just need the interactions to be more believable for me to be on board with this.
100%. Completely agree. So she immediately just takes charge of everything. She goes up to Scott Summers there on the lawn, comforts him for having lost his team on Krakoa.
Yeah.
Now, I get that you can hand wave that he should recognize her because we had that retcon that's happened, the Bendis thing, I think it was, where the original 5 went through time to the future. Scott was on the Champions with Kamala.
Yeah.
They got sent back to their original timeline, but with their memories kind of locked away, at least temporarily. So you could say, he sees her and
not locked away at this point because he totally recognizes her.
Right. You'd have to hand wave something. Oh, seeing a person from the future will unlock at least, I don't know, his whole future memory.
Yeah.
And he doesn't seem at all like, oh my God, I was in the future, which you'd think he'd remark on. What the hell?
Yeah.
And suddenly this whole part of my brain just lights up that I didn't know was there. We've, months and months, maybe years of adventures. But no, he's still,
I also love this,
Kamala,
what
how
the
you
hell?
doing?
He's like, what are you doing here? And she's like, shh, it's okay. I'm here to help. Okay, great, cool.
Yeah, it's just so
Sounds
condescending.
great. You're just somebody from the future. No biggie.
Yes. And you're the leader of the X-Men whose team was just swallowed up by an island.
Yeah.
The 16-year-old girl is going to pat you on your head and you're going to be okay with that. I don't like it. And again, she explains to him how, oh no, everything's going to be fine. This is all good. This is, great stuff. And she is, a superhero fangirl. So clearly she knows the story. That's fine.
Mm-hmm.
So we now see the scene when Xavier brings together a group of new international mutants. Your Storm, Colossus, Banshee, Sunfire, Logan, Nightcrawler, Thunderbird. Skips over Cyclops explaining what happened to his team on Krakoa. This is, where you should really just know that story. Kamala solves problems immediately. In the original Giant Size, Sunfire kind of storms off the team for the moment. But now, when he starts to storm off, Kamala shames him into staying by bringing up his father. Once again, the 16-year-old girl, completely in control, solves everything.
Yeah, nobody knows her, but it's still such an impactful comment that she makes.
Yeah, Professor Xavier says, oh, yeah, sure, you can hang around here. I can read Scott's mind, and he trusts you. So if he trusts you, well, I'll give you the keys to the kingdom. You're basically my second in command now.
Yeah,
maybe
if this was written a little bit better, I think she would have said, hey, I know you don't read people's mind without their consent. Read my mind, right? And then he could have gotten a very good read on her and understood what was going on, and this would have made way more sense to me.
Yeah, and then you have to raise the whole paradox problem because she knows the whole future. So if he reads her mind, now he knows the whole future. It would get way more complicated.
Yeah.
But you kind of have, if you're going to do this time travel thing, you really need to deal with that complication rather than just waving it away.
And I would also say in this era, I don't remember Scott being an equal to Xavier. Like, I don't think Xavier at this point in time would be like, oh, Scott, you've got plans to involve this person. I'm just going to go with your plans. He was very much like you're the field team leader, but I'm the overall leader. But it is a very different dynamic that's shown in this issue than what was actually going on.
Well, he accepts it and he gives Kamala an X-Men outfit, which I don't know where this came from. It was lying around. The mask has, are those devil horns or cat ears?
Yeah. I mean, it kind of looks like Marvel Girl's outfit.
Okay.
With the exception of like the scarf, right? That's maybe the Kamala edition.
Yeah, I mean, she has a scarf herself, so the scarf can ride along from her civilian outfit, I guess. That's right. So the whole team, including Kamala, flies off toward Krakoa. Kamala being obnoxiously cheerful and chatty on this flight, which should be deadly serious. They don't know if their friends are alive or dead, but she's just blah, 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 yakking.
I'm going to gripe
annoying.
about an art thing, too, slightly before that. When they're kind of all in the room, like, just chatting.
Right.
Like, getting the brief from Xavier.
Mm-hmm.
Do you see Peter? Colossus?
Is this after? Okay, so this is after she gets the outfit.
Yeah.
I see Colossus, yeah.
Why does Colossus have his hand around Kamala Khan?
Oh, yeah, good question.
They're like BFFs already. And, 5 seconds before that, maybe like 2 panels before, she's like talking about how, oh, you made my skirt too short. That's, not kosher for my beliefs. I'm like, okay, but you're totally fine with this Russian guy just like being all handsy with you immediately.
Yeah, and for him, he's fresh off the commune at this point, right?
Yes.
He's in communist Russia, although, sliding timeline exactly where communism is at this point. We don't even want to get into that, but he's definitely, a Russian kid who's now being, that's way too friendly. I didn't even notice that. That's kind of
it's just weird. Creepy. I was like, I know this is the pose scene, right? Like you can frame this picture, but I just like, these characters don't know you, Kamala. And even if even today, I wouldn't expect to see Colossus doing that with Kamala Khan.
That is a very, very good point.
But anyways,
then they fly off toward Krakoa.
Yeah.
And in the original giant size, teams of 2 people would head down to the island, have various adventures on the island before they all meet up at a temple.
Mm-hmm.
But in this revised version, Jet never gets there. Instead, it's attacked by Legion. During this fight, Krakoa makes itself known, and Kamala figures out, because she's so smart and perfect, that Legion is really here to capture Krakoa for his own confused nefarious. How the hell does she know that? This is the big jump to conclusion. How does she know that he's not there for Professor X or Wolverine or anybody?
Yeah, she's been sent back in time for reasons that she doesn't know, and then they're attacked by Legion, and she knows that he has this agenda.
Yeah, even if she knows the giant-sized story because she's from the future, she doesn't know this version.
Yeah.
Another problem. So let's see. So she talks to Krakoa, and she explains, hey, Krakoa, who at this point is a raging monster, explains to Krakoa that, hey, to prevent bad things happening, you an island that walks like a man, you need to launch yourself into space.
Well, let's talk about the talking part.
Oh, I'm gonna. You go for it. Tell me.
So she just starts dropping Krakoan, right? Which is fine. She was, had that implanted into her brain, but that never allowed you to talk to the island.
Right.
If that did, everybody would be talking to the island like all the time. But we had that huge plot point where the only person who could do it was Cypher, right?
Yes.
You had to have like extra knowledge to really understand Krakoa.
Yeah, Lansing and Kelly completely misunderstand Krakoan language because we have two separate languages here. We have the language spoken by mutants on Krakoa. That's the one with the funny symbols that we see it all the time. We still kind of see.
And that was just about cultural unity, right? They were like, well, we need to have our own.
Doug.
Yes. Have our own thing so we could be. Yeah.
And that's the language that was implanted in every mutant's mind when they got to Krakoa.
Yep.
And then there's an entirely separate language that Krakoa, the island itself, speaks.
Yeah.
Not the same language. And like you say, only Doug Ramsey could speak with Krakoa. That's why Professor X needed Doug Ramsey at the very beginning.
Yes.
I think there was like a bit towards the end where Doug was locked away and maybe somebody could copy his powers briefly.
Yeah.
Didn't they get like one last message from Krakoa after Doug was locked away? One of the big 5 did the power copying thing. But yeah, other than that, only Doug. So yeah, Kamala should 100% not be able to communicate with Krakoa here.
I should see her just talking and then the island just eats her. Because it's like, whatever.
But even if she could speak its language, why is it listening to this kid?
Yes.
At this point, it just uses mutants for food.
Yes.
Right? It just feeds on their energy. It's never had a conversation with Doug, or I guess Charles had the conversation before Doug got there explaining, hey, let's be pals here. Let's make a little symbiotic deal.
Mm-hmm.
So why Kamala says 3 words to it and it launches itself into space to get away from Legion.
Yes.
Doesn't make a damn bit of sense.
Also, Legion talks about how he could destroy the whole world, but he can't do anything with this flying island.
Yeah, so this shouldn't be that big a deal.
I'm like, great, it's in
he does
space.
say-
Fine, I'll go into fucking space and deal with the island there.
There is one panel where he says we're gonna follow that daft rock into space and rip it into pieces along with your entire history.
Yeah.
And this is when Kamala gets mad and she punches him really hard.
Yeah,
Now-
we finally get the reveal.
Yeah, so Stretchy Girl punching a guy should not be that big a deal because it's
Yeah.
Legion.
Yeah.
But yeah, we get a full page splash of her stretchy and biggened fists are now, they've
Sparkly.
got like Jubilee fireworks around them, and they get a room sound effect, and it seems to hurt Legion more than it should.
Well, and they're glittery. They're glittery. It's
Her gloves
basically
were glittery. Her gloves were already glittery. Those are just her gloves.
Oh, you think so?
Or her gloves were yellow at least.
They're yellow. Yeah, see, I'm telling you, man.
I don't
glitters.
know if they're glittery now because we can see the detail on them because they're bigger.
Yeah.
Maybe that's part. Maybe the glittery diamond pattern is part of the power.
No, I think
But-
it's the MCU light projection that we've speculated for a long time.
I
And she's
guess,
just like
but
doing it over her fists.
it's very vague as to what actually is happening here and why it works and what the power is. You'd think that when they're actually going to reveal the power, it'd
Yeah.
be clearer than this. It's just the power to punch people harder.
Yeah.
Which-
And she's looking at the next
dull.
scene. She's like, "Wait, what?" And she's all freaked out. So this is her reveal of her mutant power.
And it's also never explained. Like at the very beginning when she's talking to Bruno, she's very clear that the whole Inhuman thing is preventing her mutant power from being revealed.
Yeah.
So why that's changed, I don't know.
Because she needed to punch Legion really hard.
And I
That's
guess
why.
punching Legion here slowed him down enough that the island could get away where Legion couldn't get to it, which I wouldn't think so because he's kind of super powerful.
Yes.
The
Which
island is gone.
you could make this work because, Legion is a collection of, thousands of personalities. If they had taken the time to say, like, it's only these personalities that are in this Left
Right.
Behind version,
a
and
limited
maybe,
subset.
yeah, then I could buy it. But they didn't do a good job of helping you understand. I don't think they want to, right? They still want this Legion to be able to do whatever the fuck it wants to do.
And he can do a whole lot. He destroyed that whole army. He traveled through time. He's planning on defeating Krakoa and bringing, destroying Krakoa.
Yeah.
So it's not like he's super nerfed.
Yeah.
But so the island's gone. They don't really specify how those 5 trapped mutants that kicked off the whole story. Did they go to space now with Krakoa, or did they get left behind on Earth? Because last I
That's a
knew,
good
they were
point.
inside
I forgot
Krakoa.
about that. That's
the whole
hilarious.
point of Giant Size X-Men was to rescue
Yeah.
these 5 characters.
I hope it brings an atmosphere with it. Otherwise, the whole team is dead.
I guess. So
All right, I would give them kind of some props if those characters were messed up in some way.
that's never going to be mentioned. It's all fine.
Yes.
We don't even know, has the past been changed?
Yeah.
Or is this an alternate timeline that doesn't actually change the past of the 616?
Yeah.
Okay, so instead of going after Krakoa in space, Legion decides to jump to his next point in time to try to mess up mutant history, which is, of course, Dark Phoenix. He says that he needs the Phoenix in order to follow Krakoa, which I don't really get, but okay.
Into the White Hot Rim. That's what he's talking about.
Okay. So off we go to the Dark Phoenix saga. Kamala gets dragged there as well. And again, we don't really know if she's just attached to Legion somehow, if there's another force bringing her along because this force knows that she's the only one who can save history.
Yeah.
Don't know yet. Maybe that'll be revealed. But that was the main story. And then we see that next time in however many weeks, we'll be rejoining the Dark Phoenix version of Kamala Khan.
Yeah. What would you just give this part of the story?
Oh, goodness. Maybe a 3?
Oh, God.
I really did not like
Yeah,
it.
you
Dave
really
gave the whole
did.
thing a 2,
Yeah.
which
that's
I think is
hilarious.
slightly harsh. I'm like 50% better than him, so I can't be that bad.
Yeah.
I really did not care for this at all. I found it like it's
I
supposed
liked
to
what
be
it was trying
celebrating
to do.
Giant Size, but
Yeah.
she just runs roughshod over everything in Giant Size. The whole
Yeah.
rescue the mutants thing pushed aside because Kamala Khan needs to be the best, most loved, most important person
Mhm.
literally in mutant history.
Mm-hmm. We get a big reveal of her mutant power finally, which we've been waiting just to rip that Band-Aid off. We knew what it was going to be, but we
Kinda
see it
underwhelming.
finally. I dig this idea of like visiting the past and then like, impacting it. And I dig the idea of Legion, but the execution was just terrible.
I'd like to see her at least somewhat impressed and, oh, I didn't know it was like this. I didn't realize what you were up against there. Something where she's not just totally cool with being thrown back in time and taking over this moment and just solving everything in 2 seconds.
There was another line that was kind of weird where she was like talking to Logan, and he was very hostile at this point in time, so I kind of liked that he just wanted no business with her.
Yeah,
that part was
fine.
cool. But then this comment, he's like, oh, I think we'd be great friends if I could just get through. Are they great friends now? Because I never thought, like, if I were to say, here are the people that are Kamala Khan's buddies, like, I would not have put Wolverine on that list.
I don't think I've ever seen a story where they're super buddy pals. I mean, was there a Wolverine type character on the Champions with her? Was it Laura or even Scout? Was there a connection there, maybe?
Maybe, yeah, I just didn't read that.
Know. Maybe through there.
Anyways, so I probably would have just given it like another FU5, but maybe not even FU because it's doing stuff I wanted to do. It's just so poorly executed.
So yeah, that's the main story. And yeah, we also have a Revelation backup written by Al Ewing. And Ruben, we were incorrect. We were pretty sure that when it says Revelation backup, it's going to be about
Doug Ramsey. Yeah,
Doug Ramsey, who's currently operating under the name Revelation, but nothing to do with him.
But you know what? I was expecting to be extremely disappointed, and I actually found myself kind of liking the story a lot.
Well, it was all right. I wouldn't go that far, but it was certainly, there's some intriguing things here. It's a Charles Xavier story set sometime early on in the Westchester school era when he's recruiting mutants from around the world.
Yeah.
He goes to Italy to recruit a mutant that Cerebro says is there, and he's kind of a smug jerk about it, which completely accurate, right?
Mm-hmm.
He thinks every mutant in the world should be thrilled at the offer to learn at the feet of the wonderful Charles Xavier. But this mutant, she's not interested. Her name is Justina LaGuardia. She's a police detective, and she has the mutant ability to, quote, surpass whomever she is near. And not just mutants, because early in the story, she has her purse stolen by a dude on a scooter, and her power lets her run faster than the scooter can scoot. So, very wide-ranging kind of power.
Yeah. You know who this made me think of?
Tell me.
Iska the Unbeaten.
Indeed. Yeah. So what happens if she's near Iska?
That's a paradox that destroys the world.
What happens if she stands next to Forget-Me-Not? All sorts of crazy combinations here. Very
or Juggernaut. I mean, that's the classic one, right? Like,
right.
Can't stop the Juggernaut, but you can't stop her.
Very Grant Morrison kind of a power.
Yeah.
So when Charles shows up, now suddenly she has psychic abilities even stronger than his. And even though she's completely untrained, sometimes, like anytime there's a psychic battle, sometimes experience matters, sometimes it doesn't. Here, it doesn't. She can still read his mind, get through his shields, learn all about whatever he's been up to. And so, at the end, she says, yeah, Charles, I'm not interested. And she removes all memories of herself from Charles's mind and sends him back to Westchester.
So the one thing I laugh about this, I think this scene, because they don't really spell it out, but as I understand it, this is also like him recruiting the second X-Men team. She might have been part of it.
Oh, okay.
And when I say second, I mean not the third one. I think this is like Deadly Genesis, where we found out that there was another team that tried to go to Krakoa, and then they ended up getting
so many retcons from giant size. It's crazy.
Yes, which made me laugh because I was like, this means that like there was just another team. Because when I first saw this character, I was like, is this one of the Deadly Genesis team members?
It could be. No,
I didn't recognize her, but then I looked it up and I was like, no, this is an original character created for this story.
Yeah, the caption just says Rome, Italy, years ago. So totally vague on exactly when. So it could be during that recruitment, could be just, I mean, Charles is always recruiting mutants, could be kind of any time.
I just liked because, she does the quick, she gets his powers and then she looks into his mind and talks about how he's like got a militia of teenagers. I actually thought her like takedown of him was pretty accurate about how they were like hyper indoctrinated into his like, what she called a terrorist organization.
Yeah, and so we're not supposed to necessarily, I think, like her 100%, but she certainly has a point regarding Charles, and we're not supposed to be 100% on his side, so just that kind of tension is fun. Her design...
Military cell for teenagers. That's great
not
definition
totally
of X-Men.
wrong.
And then I liked when he was like, you taught them to battle the street like gangsters. I was like, you're hilarious.
And so she looks like an Italian Snow White, so that's kind of a cool look too. She's got this big red bow on her head and black hair. Kind of fun. And so, Ruben, do you think that the other Revelation backups will they continue to be about this character? Will they each be about other characters? Any guesses? I mean, we've been wrong so far. We might as well keep guessing.
Yeah. I don't think this is going to be a continuation of this character's story, because we get a the end question mark at the end, which that kind of tells me when I see that it's like this character will come back at some point. But unless Al Ewing's writing all of the backups, I kind of have a feeling this is tucked away for some future story involving him writing more
maybe
X-Men.
It'll come up in X-Men or Uncanny at some point, but yeah, I don't know. She's kind of a cool character. But again, that kind of a power can also break stories really easily.
Yeah,
right?
I agree.
That she can win, again, like Iska.
Yeah.
You can't really have Iska around too much because your story just doesn't work anymore.
Yeah. You could tell a lot of really cool, fun stories, but I just would say as soon as you create this power, you have to have a really good way to beat her. That's clear and understandable, not like a kumbaya moment, and that seems clever. So I hope that's kind of done already, but
or a reason
TBD.
For her to not want to just rule the world, right? Give her a different motive, give her something that makes her disappear for a long time in between brief fun appearances.
Yeah.
Okay,
I would think it should be a really good character to add into the, what's the Grey Malkin group? I could see her being the, police force behind Grey Malkin.
Part of the podcaster, Karina Ellis and pals.
Yeah, and make Karina one of her henchmen, that kind of thing. In which case you could have her as a big threat, right? That would really level up that organization, and
could be
make you believe that they can actually hold out against X-Men attacking them.
Or she goes into exceptional X-Men. Sinister makes a clone of her, and they stand next to each other. We got a feedback loop. What's going to happen? Okay, so overall, let's talk about art for a second. I think the art looks really good everywhere.
Yeah.
The future, again, the beginning part where we see that far future with Legion, that is the best of the best. The Krakoa part looks a little bit goofy. Ms. Marvel always looks kind of goofy. I mean, she's designed to be a somewhat goofy character, right? That's who she is, and that's okay.
Yeah.
It fits the tone there. The look in the backup, it's kind of neat. It looks a little more old-fashioned, which, again, fits with if this is an old story that we just haven't been told before. I like the way it looks. I like the attitude that they give to Ms. LaGuardia here, because she is not taking any crap from Charles. And we see that in her dialogue and in her, just the way she holds herself, the facial expressions. It all looks great. I'm going to give the whole issue a 4 out of 10 because I like the backup.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it's kind of what I was afraid this book was going to be, all about telling us once again how Ms. Marvel is just the greatest thing ever and everyone loves her, and then the whole crowd clapped. So 4 out of 10. And are you going to give it a whole thing a 5 out of 10, or are you going to revise given the backup?
The backup is going to get me to ramp it up. So if I were just to rate the backup itself, I probably would have given this a 7. And
at least that'd be like a 7.5-ish on the backup, because I think I'm enjoying thinking about it. I want to see her come back. To me, that's a 7.5 to an 8.
Yeah, and she seems like a really dangerous character with powers that I can clearly understand. And I'm just like, who would I like to see her go up against? I'd like to see her knock the smug out of Logan. That's my first one.
Oh, would she just have more claws?
Better,
I'm enjoying thinking about her standing next to every character we've ever seen.
Yes.
Stand next to Glob Herman.
Yep.
And you just look even weirder. What happens?
You can see Cyclops shooting at her, and then she just opens up a infinitely more powerful optic beam blast, which would be badass.
Awesome. Yeah, so many cool. You could imagine a lot of cool stories with her.
Yeah. I kind of just wish this had been in the Free Comic Book Day special, because then I could have, enjoyed this story a little bit more. But I think I have to this, because this is the backup, right? This is the second thought. So overall, I'm going to say this thing was a 5.2, but
yeah, it's only 5 pages of her.
Yeah, but those are some sweet 5 pages. So good job, Al Ewing. I want you to write this character, and I want to see you back on X Books. And Lansing and Kelly, I'm happy that you're leaving.
Yeah, well, we have a few more books of Lansing and Kelly telling these giant-sized stories, and but we'll see if I'm curious to find out really what Legion's plan is. I'm curious to find out why Kamala's being dragged through time with him. So I have some things I'm curious about, But yeah, the tone and the dialogue, and I'm hoping somebody stops kissing Kamala's ass for just 1 minute because it's getting tiresome.
Well, it's going to end in a really stupid way. I predict that
Most likely.
the nice David Haller is going to come back and merge with the evil one, and that'll be a wham bam. They're
You
done.
heard it here first, folks. Okay, moving on from Giant Size, our next book is Uncanny X-Men number 15, Dark Artery Part 3 of 4, As Close to Evil, written by Gail Simone, art by David Marquez, colors by Matthew Wilson, letters by Clayton Cowles. So, Ruben, this has been a good arc, been enjoying the Dark Artery story.
Mm-hmm.
I thought this issue got a little bit of a stumble for me. It kind of got a bunch of concepts thrown at us that seemed maybe not to fit so well, but we'll get through it.
Mm-hmm.
Up to now, we've had 3 kind of semi-intersecting story strands going on. We've had the outlier kids exploring the Dark Artery. We've had the grown-up X-Men doing their thing, mostly involving Gambit and a dragon. And we've had this historical tale about an old-timey mutant lady named Henrietta. This chapter continues those 3 strands, and also adds one more. So let's start with that new strand, which is just 2 pages total, one at the start, one at the end. A title tells us we're outside New Orleans at a USACE levee. That's the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. We see one of those Greymalkin dog sentinels lying on the ground, seemingly inert, but now its eyes light up red, it reboots itself, activates olfactory mode and shadow mode, and sets as its new target Haven House, Louisiana.
Yeah. Why was this dog here? That's what I was wondering.
I'm not sure. Was this related to the mall attack? Did it run off and keel over after there? That's my best guess, but I don't know if we know exactly where this particular dog came from.
Yeah. And we know we were testing the dogs in different locations, so maybe this is just a leftover from one of the tests. But
Could be some failed test where they lost track of it, and could be anything.
But I kind of wish I had more insight into like where this thing came from.
It would be nice to have this panel connects to that panel kind of a moment, but I haven't been able to put that together.
Yeah.
On the issue's final page, it reaches its target destination, scares some cats. These are Gambit's 3 cats, Lucifer, Oliver, and Figaro, who've been around for like 10 years now. But the Robo-Dog, he's not there for cats. It's there for, well, it casts its evil robotic eyes on Alice and Chelsea St. Juniors, the mom and daughter of the St. Juniors family who own and run Haven House.
Yeah.
And final panel says, ominously, targets acquired.
Yeah.
Why is it after these 2? Does that mean they're mutants? We know that the kid's a mutant.
Yeah.
Is the mom a mutant?
That'd be interesting.
I don't know. This is all we get here, clearly setting up something for next issue. I'm going to guess that we see Chelsea use her mutant power next issue. Right? She can do the force field thing.
Yeah,
we saw that happen.
Whatever her name was.
Yeah. So we'll see that happen next time, I believe.
Yep.
Second strand, let's go back in history again. We left off with Henrietta in her full, rocked-out mutant form with a pair of stone golems serving her, threatening to squish that nasty detective guy, Jacob Miller, under his own car.
Yep.
And I wasn't sure if we were going to revisit this moment, but I'm glad we do. Before she can squish him, she's interrupted by 3 other people.
Yep.
And in keeping with the theme and setting of this story, all 3 of these people are black, and at least 2 of them appear to be mutants. Maybe all 3.
Yeah.
The apparent leader, the spokesman, the most ordinary-looking guy who may be human, he's Michael. Big burly guy, he's got a beard, he's got a shotgun, looks a lot like Marcus St. Junior's.
Yep.
I'm going to say probably an ancestor.
Yeah, that's my guess.
That seems likely. Grandfather,
great-grandfather, yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Now, to Michael's right, we have a grandmotherly figure named Annabelle, who we'll learn also goes by Witchfire. She's first seen just juggling flame. So, yeah, I'm guessing she's a mutant. Later on, she'll be shown to have healing powers as well. To Michael's left is a younger, slender gentleman holding 4 pistols, one in each of his 4 hands.
Yeah.
So, I don't think we learn his name in this issue, but clearly a mutant. Michael calls Henrietta by name. I guess he's been expecting her. He encourages her to have her golem put the car down gently and maybe not on the detective.
Yeah.
And Henrietta's glad to have been stopped from murdering this guy, says, I almost killed these men. Plural, which reminds us that, there was a second detective, right? Kind of an underling. And the underling was the one who shot George, and he got tossed aside by a golem, seemed to be tossed out of the entire book. We thought the guy was dead, but now he's back, cowering behind his boss.
Yeah.
And George, that driver who was shot in the chest, we were sure he was dead. But no, he's not quite dead. If I had the Princess Bride drop, I'd play that now. Annabelle, that fire juggling lady, she's able to use her healing powers to bring George back from the brink. And Jacob, the head detective, now that he's not in imminent danger of being squished, he goes back to ranting about mutants, demon spawn, he calls them, tells Michael and company that he's going to bring 24 agents out tomorrow to burn this place to the ground.
Yep.
Ruben, was this a smart thing for Jacob to say? Is this what they teach you in detective school?
Yeah, that's how you convince your captors to let you go.
Yeah, because he's got no bargaining position here. He's unarmed. They're both injured. He's surrounded by clearly very powerful mutants.
Yeah.
So Michael, the guy who seems to be Marcus's ancestor, just talked Henrietta out of killing these dudes. Now he tells Annabelle, a.k.a. Witchfire, burn them, leave no evidence but ash.
Yeah.
So real whiplash here from, oh, I don't want you to kill them, but we'll kill them. Why not?
Yep.
And then he reverses himself again, says, no, let this be Henrietta's decision. Why should she be in charge? This is all about the future of this place, and that she just got here. But Henrietta decides to let the detectives live. And that's the end of the historic session. We're kind of right back where we left off last issue. The cliffhanger being, what happens to the detectives? And we can speculate, but what do you think?
Henrietta does intervene, right? And she tells him to let them live. So it seems like they let them go, is my guess.
I'm not
and
sure
he says, God help us all. I think he lets them. I think he lets them go. And then I think what's going to happen is, they bring back the rest of their followers and they probably kill all the mutants.
Ooh, that's a dark story you just wrote. Could be. I'm wondering if maybe these detectives get tied in with the whole dark artery mutant afterlife situation here. And maybe they're tied to the place. Maybe they get to live, but they don't get to leave.
I see. Part of that city. Yeah, part of that city of people, souls of mutants or souls of people who killed mutants.
Right. And we'll talk, it gets very convoluted, but we'll talk about that when we get here to our next strand, where we take back up with the outliers in the present day inside the dark artery. They're there with both Henrietta in rock form with her very stylish hat, also the Man-Thing. And Henrietta hits them with a hell of an exposition dump. And this is where the issue kind of starts to lose me. The exposition kind of happens in a scattered form over multiple pages. I'm going to try to put it in order. And Ruben, if I get this wrong, you tell me if you think there's another way.
Yes.
Another thing I'm missing here.
Yes, I'm waiting with bated breath.
So the outliers have passed through several doors. There's one more door in front of them.
Yep.
And through this door is a place called the Penumbra, which is a word meaning like the edge of the shadow. And this Penumbra seems to be a section of the afterlife devoted to punishing humans who have done grave wrong to their own mutant family members.
Mm-hmm.
A very, very specific afterlife. So Henrietta says, quote, if a father branded his daughter a witch, he came here. If a mother informed the constable on her husband, she came here, to their eternal regret and unending torment.
Mm-hmm.
Which feels kind of like maybe Gail Simone working out very specific family issues, right? I mean, it feels like there's something behind this that's kind of uncomfortable, right? Disloyal family identity issues, something like that. So this place, the Penumbra, we're told, was created a long time ago by a mutant named Greta, which means I need to play this.
How dare you?
There we go. Greta had two powers, the power to create curses and the power to bind the wicked. Greta's husband was a human mean to their mutant daughter, and so Greta created the Penumbra initially to punish just her own husband specifically.
Yeah.
So having a mutant who can bind people's souls after death, that's already kind of a lot, but we get extra layers of complexity put on top of this. Henrietta says that the Penumbra has a ruler. This ruler is not Greta.
How dare you?
But somebody named Shuvarak. Henrietta calls Shuvarak a hurricane from the stars and the voice of darkness. So like an alien/demon situation? Is that who Shuvarak is?
Yeah, I guess.
We don't know when, how, or why Shuvarak came to this place, how she took over I think it's a she. I'm not sure where I'm getting that from. I'm saying she. How Shuvarak took over the job of ruling it. How that connection happened, I don't know. But she did. And between the Penumbra and Shuvarak, we're told that humans sense the wrongness of this place, avoid it entirely. And so at some point in history, mutants decide to build a cemetery here, one that humans won't come and dig up or desecrate.
Yeah.
The Man-Thing guards these graves, and I still don't know why he's involved, because he's not really a mutant kind of a character, but he's here. And Henrietta guards the portal to Penumbra, to that afterlife for humans who did bad things to their mutant relatives. She says her job is to keep the humans out of the Penumbra and to keep the penitent in the Penumbra.
Yeah. And I also kind of call BS on the Man-Thing guarding this thing, because Man-Thing's all over the place. He's not a very good guard if he's like here one day and, 99 other days he's off doing Man-Thing things.
I can hand wave that as there can be multiple copies of him, multiple versions of him.
Yeah.
I just want to know why he cares about this place. So Shuvarak has been running this Penumbra place for however long. She wants a break, and she's the one who's been calling to Deathdream to be her replacement. Now, last issue, we were very specifically told that Henrietta was tired and looking for a replacement. But this issue, Henrietta seems fine continuing on. Shuvarak is looking to take early retirement. To me, there's a disconnect there. I don't know if I'm misreading it, but it seems like there was a change made.
Yeah.
So, with the exposition dump done, main conflict going forward seems to be whether or not Deathdream's going to take this job. He seems fine with it, says that, he's no use to anyone outside, no one cares about him anyway, might as well take this gig. Other outliers, especially Ransom, say, hey, no way, you're one of us, you're on our team, we're not willing to let that happen to you. So all four of them are going to head down the yellow brick road into the Penumbra to confront Shuvarak. Henrietta says to them of this journey that, quote, it will change you, and Deathdream says, good, he wants to be changed.
Yeah.
And now it's already been kind of confusing. Now it gets silly. The Penumbra has what Henrietta herself calls a dress code, which I don't know if that term was around in Henrietta's day, but what she says.
Yes.
This dress code is that an entire Hot Topic has to explode all over the outliers. We don't see how it happens. Is magic happens, or is there a wardrobe there? They get changed off panel.
Yes.
All of them are now dressed in very, very silly black outfits.
Yeah. In my teenage days, I think I owned one of these outfits at least.
Is it one of the skin-tight black vinyl-looking ones?
Yes.
Don't tell me. I don't want to know. So, Calico says her outfit, quote, has a pulse, which makes me think of like Venom symbiotes, that sort of a thing.
Definitely.
So they head in, they see the city, they see Shuvarak hanging over it. Once again, Deathdream tries to get rid of the others. They don't want to go away.
That scene with Shuvarak, like, I guess in the distance over the Penumbrum. I stare at that and I'm like, this is just a Stranger Things poster. Like, I swear to God, I've seen this thing. Yeah. It looks exactly like, the Upside Down with...
Very ink-blotty.
Yeah.
Stranger Things, yeah.
Anyways.
So, because this is a Marvel comic book, we gotta have a fight scene. So when they enter the city, the residents there attack them.
Mm-hmm.
Calico, she's not sure if she can use her powers without Ember there. I forget when we left Ember behind, because he was in the boat at some point, but I guess he didn't come down the stairs.
Yeah.
Sometime he stayed behind. And again, whether he's real or not, we don't quite know.
Yeah.
Ransom says, and this was kind of interesting, he says, Jitter used her power less than an hour ago.
Yeah,
she's out of juice.
I was like, they finally put the explanation on that.
Yeah, we've been calling for a restriction on her power ever since she was first, on the scene. So
1 minute,
once an hour.
1 minute, 1 hour, which makes her pretty damn weak.
If you're in a sustained, dangerous situation, pretty weak. But as far as any ability in the whole world for an hour, pretty useful. I like that balance, right? It's an okay balance. It makes her a powerful character, but not story breaking. Yeah, no, I definitely needed that limit, and it's cool. And maybe over time you could relax it a little bit if you want to. She trains and can do it like 3 times an hour or something. But because Nightcrawler originally couldn't bamf a lot of places, right? Like he had like a certain number of bamfs that he could do within a certain amount of time. So those two are out of the fight for now. Ransom and Deathdream have to really be the strong ones here. And they do pretty well, but there's just so many villagers, they get overwhelmed. and the villagers close in, grab hold of both Calico and Jitter. We'll come back to this moment in a second, but first we're going to head off to our final strand and see what the grown-up X-Men are up to. Rogue is out of that ice block that the dragon froze her into last issue. No harm done. Gambit just now notices that, hey, where are those kids? They probably should have been attracted by all this, sound and commotion with the dragon. Marcus tells them, and we knew Marcus knew this, Marcus tells them, oh, they're down at the artery. Gambit freaks out. Rogue demands to know what the hell you're all talking about. Off-panel, Gambit tells her and the rest some version of the exposition we just went through. How much, I don't know, but some version. He sums it up as, I'm not going to do a Gambit accent, this is the house that guards a graveyard that stands between us and perdition. Naturally, Gambit and company aren't going to let the kids' faces alone, so they too head to the artery. Rogue asks, hey, what should we wear? Regular clothes or uniforms? And this is kind of funny. Gambit and both St. Juniors reply to her in unison, it won't matter what you wear, because they know about the Hot Topic dress code. And I'm fine with jumping here. We don't get to see how the X-Men go through the artery. We don't get to see how they talk to the man thing.
Man-Thing's cool with them, just like, oh yeah, it's the X-Men.
I know them from
the
work, one
X-Men.
of those moments. They just arrive at that battle, dressed in their Hot Topic outfits at the last minute, to join in with the kids fighting the villagers of the damned. So that's where we leave it. The solicit text for the next issue promises the secret of the Endling at last. So we got that to look forward to. So, Ruben, overall, what did you think of this issue of Uncanny X-Men?
I enjoyed it more than I think you suggested at the beginning. And the little conceit of this ridiculous goth outfit thing really amused me.
Okay.
I thought it was fun from an artist's perspective, right? They could just draw crazy new, one-use looks for these characters.
And I'm just noticing now, Henrietta's outfit here kind of matches it in style.
Yeah.
So it was kind of foreshadowed a little bit in her cool hat look.
Yeah. And I'm still kind of curious about what, I agree there was a big exposition dump about what this is and why it exists. And it starting to work. I need a little bit more of an explanation, how did it come to be?
Just these multiple layers. We've got the mutant who created it, and then we've got this alien who's in charge of it, and we've got a graveyard above it.
Yeah.
It's a lot. It seems to be more layers than need to be here. I don't know.
Probably.
Gail Simone must have some purpose for why she has to have all these layers.
Yeah.
But as of right now, it just seems like, why does it have to be this complicated?
It's close, but I need to see, where's Greta? Are we ever going to see Greta? And
How dare you?
You're going to derail me, man.
Go on.
Oh, man. Yeah. And how did Lady Henrietta get involved in this, guarding it, right? And how did they shove the damn, space alien into this place?
And
why would Shuvarak take on this responsibility of, managing this place?
A lot of questions there. And there's only one issue left in this arc. This is issue 3 or chapter 3 of 4 of the Dark Artery. And it seems the issue after next issue was a whole separate thing. So a lot needs to be wrapped up next issue. And I'm a little bit nervous. There's still really cool stuff here. I really enjoy Henrietta in the past. The whiplash of kill them, don't kill them, that I thought could have been handled a little better, but she's a very cool character.
Yeah.
We are retconning mutant history in America, in the world of the 616, but that's always been kind of squishy, so I'm fine with that. I'm enjoying this new version.
Yeah.
It's certainly tied to civil rights type questions, but not in a overly heavy-handed kind of way. It's put there on the page and lets us draw conclusions, and that's fine. So I enjoy that a lot. I just wish some of the complicated stuff and the very, very silly costume change at the end was a little less complicated and silly.
Yeah. I'm also going to need to see some sort of reaction from Rogue about, you knew this thing was here on the grounds and you never, because Gambit obviously is in on it, right?
She's reacting pretty strongly. Yeah.
Yeah. I know
I think a lot of that happens off panel on the way here, I'm sure.
Yeah. Yeah. I would have liked to have seen it on panel just for a second. Because this seems to be part of his, back when I was a New Orleans thief kind of lifestyle, right? That he was involved in it.
And we know from that Gambit kind of one-shot story that he did visit Haven House as a kid.
Yeah.
So maybe that's when he learned all about this.
Yeah.
So I'll make you put a number on it first. What do you give Uncanny X-Men number 15?
I was a lot higher when I just read it. I'm going to go down to a 7, but it's still by far, in my mind, like the best of the stories we read this week. And, you know,
other than the backup, giant size. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, I guess I would have given that backup more, but that's just 5 pages. But I like this little mystery and mythos add to the X universe, and I do enjoy these character interactions. So, and I guess the part I'm least caring about is the Hound showing up, you know, but
yeah, that almost feels like it's setting up like the next arc, maybe. But again, something imminently is going to happen, and I don't know why that would need to happen. We have so much to do just for this Dark Artery story next issue that devoting pages to a robo dog attacking a family, it seems like it's going to take away from a budget that needs to be spent elsewhere. But that's next month's problem.
We're going to have to deal with Gambit turning into a zombie too. That was teased in the last issue with the eye of, yeah. Anyways, so I don't know. I'm month to month. I'm enjoying it, and 7 is sort of my like, you know, I'm still on board score. Not, you know, the best story I ever read, but you know, one that didn't upset me and had some things that made me think a little bit about it.
I'm not far behind you. I think the convoluting thing bugs me a little bit more, so I'm just going to give it a 6.5. Not a bad book. It's not as good as a lot of other issues in this series. This has been a pretty good series. Yeah. I think it's been a relatively weak issue of a pretty good series. And to me, that's a 6.5.
Yeah, fair.
Okay, so those were the 2 main books we're talking about this week. And now we are on to what I'm calling Side Book Catch-Up Corner. And Ruben, are you good to start by telling us what we need to know about Cable, Love, and Chrome?
It's a great AI's favorite book ever, featuring his favorite character, Cable.
He's been enjoying it, yeah.
Yeah. I haven't liked it as much as Grace seemed to on the last cast. It's not that it's a bad story. It just feels very inconsequential. And I tend to like these time travel things, but it both was like overly simple, but also too complex for my brain to track.
Now, it just, the whole story just finished up, right? I think it was a 5-issue mini?
Yes.
So what is the overall story being told?
So the overall story is, I think the beginning of the story, there's some sort of techno-organic virus bomb that's got Cable's version of the virus in it that's going to explode, and he sends it into the future kind of willy-nilly to like prevent it from destroying whatever it was going to destroy.
Okay.
And then he starts being attacked by and hunted by this assassin called Cicada that's like following him all through the timeline.
Right.
And then he eventually jumps to some distant future where he meets a woman who's also infected with the techno-organic virus, Avery, and she's fighting against a kind of standard, you know, authoritarian regime that is oppressing people through its use and manipulation of the TK virus.
And I read the first issue. She's kind of like a lady version of Cable, more or less.
Yeah, he like immediately falls in love with her because her personality is very similar to his. And so she's going all these like anti-conclave missions, and at some point in the series she gets killed. And because she's his paramour, he's like, even though it's against the time traveler code, I'm gonna meddle with the past to try to stop that.
Oh, I'm sure that'll go well.
Yeah, and so it goes fantastically well, of course. So he jumps to like a bunch of different timelines, and it's sort of like, you know, time always, you know, resets to whatever its like core principles are, and he's like unhappy that her death is like apparently a core requirement of the timeline. And so at some point he jumps back to like her origin, and apparently she was fighting some, I don't know what, like conclave members or something. This is probably not exactly right, but I'm trying to draw from memory. She's fighting something to like save her sister, and then because of Cable's interference, like her sister gets killed, and then she like hates him. And then, you know, he tries to fix that, and then it shows that the TK bomb that he was sending to the future to stop the past from getting destroyed ends up there and then infects Avery with his version of the TK virus. And that then turns her into Cicada. And then Cicada is like, kind of learns that he was manipulating things, and he's like, okay, you did all this to like, you know, you basically got my sister killed because of your desire to try to save me. Like, that's not acceptable, so I'm going to go back into your past and kill you, Cable.
Okay, so like, very much time loop paradox, contradiction.
Yeah,
timeline.
exactly. Time loop stuff. So she goes back. So it turns out she's the one that was like trying to kill him.
Okay.
And then he jumps back, and then he starts appearing in his own past.
Okay. Which, I mean, we've seen him cross over with his own timeline in the main X-Men stories before. Kid Cable and Big Cable, right?
Yeah. So then there's a moment where one of his past versions sees his present version, and the past version is like, you're a corrupt version of me. You know that this is like what we don't do. We don't go into our own past. And like your presence in my timeline is like going to create a paradox that destroys the timeline. And like our job is like timeline police. So, past Cable is going to kill future Cable. And he's about to do it. But then Cicada has like a 180, change of morality or something.
Oh, face turn, I think we call it.
Yeah, face turn. And she like intercepts some sort of blast that's going to kill Cable. And she gets, seriously injured herself. And somehow that sort of fixes the timeline, and then he like jumps back to the future. But in this version, the TK virus like never went to their timeline to screw things up.
Okay.
And so then he meets Avery again without her ever having been infected, and he's like, oh, do I know you? Or she's basically like, do I know you, Cable? And he's kind of like, yes, but I don't need to be in your life. It's going to just like, ruin things for you.
Those,
so yeah.
So Cable does not leave the story with a girlfriend.
No. Yeah.
Sadly, he doesn't.
He has a nice conversation with her and is like, you're better off having never met me. You remind me of somebody I knew. And then he goes off into wherever we last saw him.
Phoenix, I guess.
Phoenix, yeah. I guess he jumps from there to Phoenix.
Okay. So overall, what did you think of that story? Will Cable fans enjoy reading it? Is it a good time loop?
I think it's better than I personally am giving it credit. It probably all works out. It seems like it does, but it seems so self-contained that I personally don't like it. Like it introduced this character Avery as like such a huge part of Cable's life, but I just don't feel like it's ever going to be mentioned anywhere else.
Okay.
Or this will ever come in, especially the way they leave it. And so it almost felt, in my mind, like a waste unless you really enjoy, the past is the future.
As a self-contained Cable time loopy kind of story, it sounds like it does what it set out to do.
Yeah, exactly. It's decent, but in my mind, it's just like a 6. If you're a Cable fan, go out and read it and enjoy it, but it has zero impact on anything like X Universe. Okay,
so that was Cable Love and Chrome, which is just wrapped up. Now I'm going to talk about, let me hit the little ding sound here. I'm going to talk about Deadpool Wolverine number 5 and what's led up to it. So I'm not going to take you through all the twists and turns about how we learned all this, but it seems that sometime in the past, both Deadpool and Wolverine were working with Strife, who is the evil Cable. Strife claims that these two bozos were doing this willingly after he showed them how awful the future was going to be if they didn't do everything he told them to do. So actually, kind of a lot like the Infinity comic. And mostly what they were doing in the past seemed to be like planting bombs around vital national infrastructure, like dams and electricity generation, that kind of thing. In the present, Strife was released from a stasis casket, and some nanites within Deadpool triggered Deadpool to start doing Strife's bidding again. Wolverine had also been dosed with those same nanites, but he's been resurrected over and over and over again, and I guess they didn't bring the nanites along for the ride. By the end of this 5th issue, and this is a series that's still an ongoing and still telling the same story, by the end of this 5th issue, 2 major new events happen. First, Wolverine gets dosed with a new batch of nanites, so now he too is in Strife's thrall. And second, Strife is revealed to actually be Apocalypse, but in a Strife body. And if you go back through the issues, he has said some things that sound more apocalypsy and less strifey, so clearly this was Ben Percy's plan all along. What he's up to, why he's in a Strife body, still very mysterious. This was a last page reveal, so we're not supposed to understand it yet. But all of this is starting to look a whole lot like a sequel to a certain early 1990s crossover storyline called The Executioner's Song. Is that a story you're at all familiar with, Ruben?
It is, but I don't remember the plot of it. I actually own the issues. I saw them recently in a long box.
This is either a sequel or playing with that same conflict, same Apocalypse, Strife, Wolverine. I don't think Deadpool was involved in the original, so he's new to that. But So if you're a fan of that story, you might want to start reading Deadpool and Wolverine. I think so far I'd give this thing like a 7.5-ish kind of a range to it. It's fun. I like the voice Ben Percy has for Deadpool. He's written Deadpool a bit in the past and the Krakoan X-Force and things. So yeah, that's pretty good. Another book I want to mention just briefly is the Chris Claremont continuity implant title, Wolverine and Kitty Pryde. I had talked about issue 1 of this with Jim on the regular Marvel podcast. I was going to talk about it with him for the second issue on this recent regular Marvel podcast, but Jim was just so excited to talk about Metamorpho that we went on and on for the DC podcast and we ran out of time to talk about Wolverine and Kitty. The only real bit from issue number 2 that I want folks to know about comes from the end of the issue, where big things tend to happen. Logan and Kitty are hanging around in Japan when their place is attacked by sentinels, but small human-sized sentinels. And when one of these sentinels grabs Kitty, it's revealed that these sentinels are controlled by Ziegfeld Ziggy Trask. Now, Ziggy is a member of the famous or infamous Trask family, of course, who build sentinels, hate mutants, all that stuff. But the odd thing is that as far as I can tell, Ziggy has never before been seen in the main 616 continuity. Now, trying to simplify a very complicated real-world story, Chris Claremont quit writing the X-Men title in 1991, right after X-Men number 3, when he and the editorial weren't getting along. So that X-Men title kept going the direction editorial wanted to go, but many years later, around 2010, Marvel had Claremont write a series called X-Men Forever, and X-Men Forever 2, the sequel, and in those books, Claremont picked up from where he left off and kind of wrote what he would have done if that timeline had gone under his control. And that was called the 161 universe. And Ziggy Trask is from the 161. So we don't know yet if this Ziggy Trask is the 616 version of the character. She's somehow crossed over from the 161. And once again, if you're a fan of early 90s comic books, this might be something you want to pick up. Or if you're a fan of like 2010's Claremont universe, might want to check this out. It's not the best book ever. It's very Claremont-y, and if you like that kind of thing, well, if you like that kind of thing, you're probably reading it already anyway. All right, that is the last book we're going to talk about today. Looking ahead to next week, we have X-Men number 17, where we're going to get Mecha Magneto versus Twinsy the Kaiju. And Ruben, should I predict once again that we will finally find out whether Kid Omega is alive or dead? Or are they going to tease us again on that one more issue?
It's got to be back.
We got to know. It's been too long. We have to find out. I hope so.
Or we're going to get a character sheet with an X around him or over his face.
Something. Give me something.
Yeah.
We have Storm number 9, probably more thrilling scenes of Aurora dealing with American government bureaucracy. We get Helverine number 7. We've got to get the Hell Hulk like complete and walking around by the end of this issue, I hope. We have Laura Kinney Wolverine number 7 comes out next week. We may or may not talk about that. That's the one where she wakes up and she learns that all that mutant Wolverine stuff was a dream. We'll see how that goes. But Ruben, next week we also have something coming to us called Imperial number 1 by a guy named Jonathan Hickman.
Yes, who's that?
So he's done some stuff we've liked before in the past. Now, it's not technically an X book, but
Xavier will be there, right? At some point. He's got to be. He went off to save his son, and that's going to be mixed up in this. Yeah.
So I asked Jim what his plans for this book were, and he said...
Save that for the X-Men podcast.
Words to that effect. So he doesn't want any piece of this. So Ruben, you and I get to talk about Imperial number 1 on this very podcast. So that's what's coming up next week. Definitely Imperial, and then however many of these other books as we can fit in. Certainly X-Men number 17. The others we'll have to see. Before we go, recommended reading. I'm going to check out this Atom Zero backstory. He was that crazy teleporting computer from the Infinity comic. His first appearance, the Simonson Liefeld appearance, comes from New Mutants Volume 1, number 86. And his final appearance, the one that maybe explains how he winds up the way we see him in the Infinity comic, is in a 2019 arc of X-Force, the very, very last arc of X-Force before Krakoa, and that starts in X-Force Volume 5, number 4. So I'm going to check those out, and if you want to check those out too, that's where you can find them. And Ruben, other than that, what can our lovely, wonderful, loyal listeners do with their time until our next podcast.
Well, they can stay caffeinated, stay curious, and most importantly, read more X-Men comics. It's cheaper
Get
than
ready,
therapy
everyone,
and more
you just
complicated.
might survive.
I thought you were done.
Ruben and Jason are here with their X-Men deep dive. Going through all the X-books is their mission, so get ready for the Learned Edition. Things are getting weird in here. Ruben hopes another sword book gets announced this year. It's the Weird Dose of X, the X-Men comic show. It's the Weird Dose of X, guaranteed. It's the Weird Dose of X, guaranteed not to blow. Except your mind. It's the Weird Dose of X, the X-Men comic show. It's the Weird Dose of X, guaranteed not to blow. Except your mind.
Curse it and crush it, will I say forever!